Hello everybody, it's Donna. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we're going to be working on this Timeless Tulips Happy Birthday card. The stamp set is featured in the new mini catalog that debuts in January of 2020. On the screen there I just flashed the supplies you need and the instructions that were used. The supplies are quite extensive, however there's lots of things that you can leave out or do differently on this card. This is the host code for January 2020. If you use this code and you place an order over $50, you will receive a small gift from me. Just want to take a time to wish everybody a Happy New Year. It is New Year's Eve that I'm actually doing this, so I am enjoying a little glass of wine there. This stamp set features 3 sizes of tulips, a couple of stems, some leaves, and some amazing sentiments. There's also Happy Mother's Day in there, Happy Birthday, get well soon. There's also a punch that coordinates with the largest tulip as well as one of the leaves. And the tulip does leave, or the punch does leave white trim as is normal around the image. I don't want that white trim, neither am I using the big tulips, so we're going to be cutting them out instead. For this project, you will need a piece of Bermuda Bay, 5.5 by 8.5, scored at 4.25, as well as a scrap piece, roughly 4 by 4, and another little scrap piece if you don't choose to use the center of the heart. You'll also need a piece of Very Vanilla, 5.25 by 4, and 3 pieces of Whisper White, 5.25 by 4, basically 3/4 of a sheet. We'll also be using the biggest die from the Stitched Be Mine dies. This die cuts out actually two kinds of hearts, like a border heart and then a center heart. I'm just using an old Sizzix pad from my very old Sizzix machine to hold on to my stamps as I use them. We're going to be using, first off, the Very Vanilla piece. We're going to be cutting just the outline heart out of this piece. This is going to be for the front of the card. So I'm going to put it on the Very Vanilla on a grid on my work surface, or you could use the grid mat. I'm just trying to center the center of the heart up with the center line, as well as place it just approximately 3/4 of an inch down on the page. Then I'm going to use a piece of Scotch removable tape to hold it down while I run it through my die cut machine. This die will create the outline frame, which is basically the negative space, which is what I'm going to be using for this particular piece, as well as a center heart and an outline heart or a border heart. Neither which of these 2 pieces am I going to be using. I'm going to, in the process of making this card, I had several of these, or a bunch of these outlines and hearts left over, which I'm going to be making another card with, or possibly several types of cards with. Obviously they're just too good to just throw out. Okay, once I remove that from the die, I'm just going to put that aside, and then we're going to cut out from the 4x4 piece of Bermuda Bay. We're going to cut out another one, but this time all we're going to be using is the actual outline die, or outline piece. Okay, so we're just going to, this time I don't really care where the heart is as long as I just get the heart on there, and I run it through and the same thing happens. I'm not going to use that heart. I could use that for the banner, but I don't want to destroy the heart, so I'm not going to be doing it that way. But the inside piece, or that frame piece, the little tiny narrow piece, is the piece that I want to actually keep. I'm just using my pokey tool to, I don't know, that's probably not the right term, but the poke tool to push it out of the die, because it is kind of stuck in there. I guess the correct name is take your pick tool. Again, the heart I'm not using. You could use it for that label punch, but I want to keep the heart intact, so I'm just going to use a scrap piece to punch out the label. Okay, so I'm just going to put those aside with those other pieces that I already have. Now I'm going to take the Very Vanilla piece and I'm going to run it through my die cut machine using the embossing folder, the basket weave. Okay, and that's what it's going to look like. Ideally, this is going to be the actual front of the card. And what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to just get it kind of a guide up to where that opening will be. So I'm just taking a pencil and lightly penciling a guide in there. I'm going to erase that later, but that just gives me a guide where I can stamp my tulips. The whole point was I wanted the tulips to look like they're coming out of the heart. Okay, so now we're going to go on to some stamping. I'm taking the middle tulip. I'm not using the giant one in this one. I'm just using the middle one in the bud. And the middle one, I'm going to be stamping it in Bermuda Bay, and I want 3 of them basically across the heart. Now these are actually going to be covered up by fussy cutting them again later, but this just gives me the placement that I need. Plus then you can see them underneath the die. I want the middle one to be just slightly above the heart. I want it outside the heart line. And then I'm going to do it off to each side as well, slightly on an angle, but again I want it outside the line, some of it outside the line, close to the edge. And I'm just going to clean off that stamp and mount the smaller bud onto my block. And then I'm going to do the same thing, but this one I actually want the inside. Originally I thought I wouldn't want to have any dimension on the smaller ones, but I did actually end up deciding that I preferred it with the die cut on top of it. So I am going to keep it inside the heart still, but they're going to be in between those other tulips. And they're not actually touching for the most part. I know in some of my samples they are actually pretty close, but it still worked. Okay, once those 2 small buds are done, I'm just going to wash off my stamp, and then I'm going to mount the stem. Now there's 2 stems, one's curved, one's a little bit more straighter. I am starting off with the curved stamp for the 2 off to the right. And then for the 2 off to the left, all I did was I just turned the stamp around because I wanted the curve going the other way. Yes, I know it's actually upside down, but it's not going to matter because nobody's going to see the top of the stem anyways once I have the die cut or the fussy cut pieces cut out and placed on top. I do want the stem to kind of go through the center of the heart at the bottom, at the point of the heart, I guess that would be. You're not going to see what's below the heart. And here's where I've decided I'm going to turn the stem around because I don't want it going like that. I want the stem to go kind of curved downwards. And again, it's upside down, but you're not going to see the top anyways. And if you do, it just won't be noticeable. So there, I did the 2 on the left, and now I'm going to clean off my stamp and use the other stamp, the more straighter stamp, to do the center one. And again, they all kind of go together at the bottom, like a bouquet would be. I'm not stamping the leaves on here. I felt that it would just be better to have the leaves as fussy cut items. But by stamping the tulips first, you can actually see the tulips underneath, so instead of just seeing white space, plus it kind of spaced them out the way I wanted them to be. Because without the tulips there, it would be hard to place the stems perfectly. Okay, now with the other piece of Whisper White, I'm going to stamp out the tulips in the leaves that I need to fussy cut out. We need the 3 big tulips and 2 small tulips, as well as 2 of the curvy type leaves and 1 of the straight leaves. My goal was to make a set of these cards, as well as some extras in different colors. So in order to do that, it was easier for me to just stamp out a couple of sheets of these and then use my scan and cut to cut them out, because it would take me forever to cut these out by hand. They aren't difficult to cut out for sure. At the end of the video, I will show you just some still pictures of what I did in order to mass produce these cards. Okay, now I'm going to stamp the sentiment. Again, I'm using my Stamparatus, but you don't need a Stamparatus to this. You could just mount it on your block and stamp it in the center of your piece. For me, again, because I was making several of them, it was just easier to have it set up already in my Stamparatus. Now that is an L ruler in the corner, just because I don't like stamping right close to the hinges. It just works for me. It might work for you too. If I can find the link for it, I'll put it in the description below. And I'm going to stamp the sentiment for the inside of the card in Memento Memento Tuxedo Black. This just allows me to stamp exactly in the same spot for all the cards that I was doing. And then we're going to remove that, and we are actually going to do some further stamping on that card. We are taking the bud stamp, and I don't want it as bright as the outside, so I'm actually going to stamp off first. So I'm just testing the color there. Stamp it off first so I get a lighter image on the inside of the card. Then I'm going to wash that off and mount the stem. I'm using the straighter stem this time, and I'm going to do the same thing with the pear pizzazz that we've been using for the leaves in the stem. Stamp it off once, and I like the color of that now, so now I'm going to stamp it again. I did not stamp leaves on this part, but you certainly could. Okay, now I'm going to stamp the sentiment that's going to go on the outside of the card. I am going to heat emboss it, so I just use my embossing buddy to remove any static cling that might happen. And I'm mounting the happy birthday stamp. Going to use my Versamark ink pad, which I know is incredibly dirty, but because we're stamping it in a different color, it's not going to make any difference. Stamping that right on my sheet. I'm going to sprinkle some silver embossing powder over top of it, and then heat set that with my heat tool. Once that's all done, we will use the classic label punch to punch that out. You could just do this in Memento Tuxedo Black, but I just wanted something more silvery and glittery on my card. Okay, so I'm just going to put that off to the side, and now I'm going to start fussy cutting out my tulips and my leaves. These are very simple to fussy cut. As I said, I actually use my scan and cut. After they're all done, I'm going to place it in my spray box, which is a paper pumpkin box turned inside out. And I'm using some champagne shimmer paint mixed in with rubbing alcohol in my spritzer. I'm not actually showing you how I mixed it, but it's pretty. It's just a few drops of shimmer mist, and then filled it up with rubbing alcohol, and then shake it. And I shake it every time I'm going to use it. This just gave the tulips and the leaves a little bit of shimmer. I would not do this. You need to be in a well-ventilated area to do that. Once they're dry, I'm going to sponge the edge of everything. I'm sponging the Whisper White piece. This just makes the piece stand out a little bit. Usually what I do is I just run my sponge dauber across the edge, and then I kind of flick it if I want it to be a little bit more inside without actually sponging an edge on. And I did the same thing with the tulips, and then I'm going to go and do the same thing with the leaves, but in pear pizzazz. This means that if you have any imperfections in your cutting, it doesn't show up because the white doesn't show up. So it doesn't seem like it's a big deal, but it actually changes the look of your dies greatly, or your die cuts greatly. It's not really die cuts, they are fussy cut, but you know what I mean. I was also supposed to sponge the edge of the happy birthday, but I forgot, so I'll show you how I fix that at the end. So we're just going to erase the pencil lines from the outside of the tulips, because we no longer need that. And then we're going to take our white gel pen and just outline the stitch marks on the outline Bermuda Bay heart. Now we're going to attach the inside sentiment piece, which was completed earlier, to the inside of our card base using the multi-purpose glue. That just gets that out of our way. Now my camera for some reason shut off, so I missed a step where I glued the basket weave piece on top of the tulips, but I just used Tombow Mono. The only thing you have to remember is don't glue the very, very bottom of the heart down completely, because we're going to be slipping our fussy cut leaves underneath that. Okay, because I'm putting Whisper White on top of, I'm putting Very Vanilla on top of Whisper White, I kind of wanted the white not to show, so I just sponged it again to make sure you didn't see the white. Now with the outline Bermuda Bay heart, I'm just dabbing on some the fine line pen glue. Because there's little dabs of it, I don't want that actually seeping out onto my card, so I find the easiest way to not have that happen is to tap off the glue. You can also use the sponge method, but I find this works a little bit better. I don't get glue everywhere. I'm just tapping off some of that glue, so any glue that's going to squirt out has squirted out onto my paper towel and not onto my project. And now I'm going to attach it to my card. Now remember, I did not put glue right at the very tip either because I want the leaves to go underneath there. I'm just putting some stamp blocks on there to hold it down for a minute while I organize my leaves and my tulips. I have decided, I know I wanted the center, the long leaf to go in the top. So now what I did was I just attached one glue dot from the to the bottom of each of the pieces and a mini dimensional to the top. And the reason I did this is I didn't want the whole thing to be popped up. I wanted it kind of on an angle. Hopefully you'll be able to see that in the final piece. Now I'm cutting in half my Bermuda Bay banner because I'm going to attach it to the back of the sentiment. I attach it with just some glue dots, and then I'm going to put dimensionals on top of that because I want it actually popped up a bit. Okay, now I'm going to start applying these leaves to my piece. Leaves and the tulips to my piece. Just making sure that the little heart is not stuck down there, so I can slide under my tall leaf first. So the glue dot's going underneath. Take your pick tool kind of helps with that. Once it's centered, I'm just going to press it down. You can see what I mean there, whereas the bottom of the leaf is stuck down, but the top, it has dimension to it. And I'm going to do the same thing with the curvy leaves. Just kind of tucking them underneath and then pushing it down. And now it looks like they're coming out from the heart. Okay, now I'm going to attach the tulips, the buds in the full tulips to the piece. And this is where it starts to come alive. There's the two smaller ones and the two bigger ones. And again, you can really see what I mean by sticking the bottom of the tulip right down flat, but the top has dimension to it. And now I'm going to attach the sentiment to the front. I just wanted the bottom of the heart to kind of be peeking through there a bit. But before I do that, I have to remember to stick down the bottom of the heart because I don't need I'm pretty sure it's not going to go anywhere regardless, but I just stuck a glue dot underneath there so that the heart will not come apart. Not that I was really all that worried. And now I'm going to stick my sentiment. As I said, I just want the bottom of the heart to still be showing just a little bit. Okay, now I'm going to attach that to the front of my card using the multi-purpose glue. This gives me a little bit of time to move it around while I'm positioning it. Now using my gel pen, I'm going to put stitch marks all the way around that piece as well. That kind of ties everything together. I'm also going to put some stitch marks on the border piece underneath the happy birthday. This is when I realized I forgot to edge the happy birthday, and I was going to leave it, but I really think it just ties it all in by having the happy birthday edged in the Bermuda Bay. So what I did was I took another one. It looks fine if I put it on top. So I'm just going to edge that in the Bermuda Bay and glue it down on top of the original one. Again, I got too much glue on there, so I'm just tapping it off on my paper towel. And placing it right over top. Ideally, I didn't really want to have to do that, but it does add something, and my other cards are all like that, so this way they all matched. And just place the block on top to make it stick down. Now I want to attach, this set is from the Sale-A-Bration. It's one of the Sale-A-Bration freebies, these sequins. They come with matching twines. How I started this project was I know I wanted to use them in particular, so I wanted to pick those three colors that were in there, which was Bermuda Bay, Calypso Coral, and Saffron. So I took the smallest of the Bermuda Bay and attached 3 of them to the card. And that basically was our final step for completing this card. So there you go. Yes, there's a lot. I also made up 4 different ones in different colors. I used the 3 that I just mentioned as well as Highland Heather. I put them in one of our cases, plastic acetate boxes, and did a banner using the actual punch that coordinates with the Timeless Tulip. I did not have a piece of Whisper White that would go all the way around. You would need quite a large piece, so I just used a 11-inch piece and then attached an extra piece at the back. So these are the 4 cards I did for this set. I did it in, as it says, So Saffron, Calypso Coral, Bermuda Bay, and Highland Heather. Again, there's my host code. If you place an order over $50 using that host code during the month of January, I will send you a free gift valued at $6.75. This is how, you can stop the video here, but this is how I did when I made a whole bunch of them. I did everything all at once. The sentiments, stamped out all the leaves, cut them out with my scan and cut, sprayed them all, edged them all at once, and that's what I ended up with. I also did some in Balmy Blue, but I haven't put that one together yet. Okay, so this is actually what was left after I decided on a final card for this one. This is what I ended up with. I ended up with something like 7 different cards. That was my original prototype, but I decided the tulips were too big. And all the other cards are just slightly different. And these are all the extra pieces that I know I'm going to turn into something else later on. All the hearts, the outlines, some of the borders. I originally started, instead of having very vanilla, I did it in white. And then I actually sprayed shimmer paint on that because I wanted the basket weave to be distinct from the background. And then I decided that the white just wasn't going to cut it and switched to very, very vanilla, which I think was a very good move. So you can tell I have lots of options here with all these hearts, great for Valentine's Day. I'm not sure what I'm going to use them for yet, but I will put them all aside and make something. And those are the extra pieces that I ended up with. So I still have enough to do lots more cards with them. But I've worked on this project for about a week now, and I don't think I really want to see it anymore. Just right now. I'll come back to it at a later time. I also used a different background originally than the basket weave. I used the country floral, I think it was, but I just found that with the tulips and the country floral, it was too much floral. I wanted something different. So there's the 4 cards that I did make. As you can see, they're a stunning set. If you like this video, please like, subscribe, and comment. And we will catch you next time.